everyone, it's Tasha D here, two-time Olympian and Olympic bronze medalist, and welcome to another episode of Global Sports Channel's Sports Personality Spotlight. And I have an amazing guest for you today. He has been ranked in the top of the doubles. He has won 15 titles. He's represented his country. He's a world record holder. He's an author. He's an entrepreneur. I mean, do we need anything else on the list? My goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're not here, but I want you to give a warm welcome to James Cluskey. James, how are you today?
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Delighted to be
No,
here.
absolutely no problem. Where are you calling from in the world today?
So I'm in Dublin, Ireland at the moment. Yeah. So
Dublin,
from
Ireland.
my
Now, there's a little
house
accent
at home.
there. Kind of guessing
Yeah.
that's home.
Yeah. There's 4 years of college in America in between as well. So the accent
Right.
kind of gets a little bit muddled along the way. But
Yeah,
yeah. So
I
I'm
have the
home.
same issue. People are like,
Yeah.
I'll talk to them for half an hour, and then a minute later they'll be like, "Are you from Are you from London?" Like, yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't hear it. I'm like, "Tah."
Yeah.
Trying to keep
Yeah.
my
No.
accent. Do you try and keep your accent as much as possible?
I do, yeah. I think I'm okay now. Obviously, when I played tennis, I was traveling so much, so you're meeting so many people from around the world. But I think there's a saying that the further you go away from Ireland, the more Irish you become. So
I
I
like
think
that.
yeah. So I think my accent's quite neutral anyway.
Good. Well, I'm trying to keep mine, but as the
Mm.
years go by, it's fading and fading and fading. So
Yeah, yeah, it happens.
yeah, yeah. So you, like you said, you're from Dublin. Did you spend all your childhood there? What did you grow up in Dublin, or did you travel around?
Yeah, no, I grew up in Dublin. I grew up here. Started playing tennis at kind of 6 years old, and
Wow.
I suppose as all sports people, it's you kind of never know how you end up where you end up, but just loved tennis and just kind of was introduced to it at a young age. My mom would have played a little bit, so that was kind of the connection. But I started in a what's called the Parks tennis program, which is a kind of a I suppose accessible tennis for all.
Okay.
And actually, ironically enough, the Parks tennis was started in the US by Arthur Ashe, who introduced tennis into parks to kind of give every kid the chance to play tennis. And then an Irish person saw that while he was working in America in the 70s or something and said, "Oh, we need to do that at home," and kind of brought it back. So that
Right.
was my start in tennis, and then ended up, yeah, training and playing the whole way up through juniors, and ended up in the States. Then that was my next kind of step.
So you said your mother was involved. Were your parents sporty people?
They're not actually really I mean, I think my dad's a farmer, but he probably never had he never had the opportunity to play
Right.
sports, so
Yeah.
he'd be quite coordinated, but he never had the chance really to play when he was younger. But and my mom would be, she played a bit of volleyball in school, and a little bit of tennis and stuff, so she'd be quite sporty, so she kind of brought me to tennis really.
Right. Now, why do you think she picked tennis? Was it just what was available in the local parks, or did she see something in you that, you
It's a
know,
good it's a good question. I mean, I think like I have a brother and sister. We kind of My brother and sister played tennis, but we played other sports as well, like initially. And I think my parents just wanted me to be passionate about something. And I think if
right.
that was running, then I could have gone to that. If it was football, whatever it was. So we played a lot of sports, and then tennis was something that I just kind of instantly loved, and just kind of went from there, really.
Right, right. So at 6, you said you started playing, and that took you all the way to a scholarship in Louisiana. What happens for a 6-year-old all the way to a young teenager going off to college in a sport like tennis?
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, I don't know if people have read that book Bounce about the 10,000 hour rule and that sort of
Yeah,
stuff,
right.
and like an element to that kind of book as well is that you kind of need a little bit of luck as well. And I was lucky in that a really nice indoor tennis center opened close to my house. which was, a really nice facility, basically close to where I was going to school and so on. And then a coach came to Ireland from Canada who had a big impact on my life.
Right, right.
Oh, sorry, I lost you on picture there, but I have you. I
I'm
can
still
hear you.
here.
So I was like,
You're like, where'd she go? Am I talking to myself?
yeah, exactly. I was kind of like, am I talking to myself? But I think in terms of scholarship to America and stuff, I think a lot of sports people I think will identify whether it's sport or business. People can have a huge impact on your life. And I had a coach that coach that came to Canada and took the tennis director position in this club. I mean, he had a huge impact in terms of I suppose, my belief in myself and my belief in what I was doing with tennis, and kind of had me reading, had us all reading books and kind of thinking bigger and all those types of things. So I think a coach can have such a positive effect on their players, in a positive and a negative way. And I was just lucky that I had a really positive and really great coach.
Right. One, I'm just checking. Do you have? Is your mic near something? It sounds like it's rustling a little bit. I hear some
Don't think
background.
so. I don't think so.
Okay,
Is
I
it?
think
Is there a sound going off?
it sounds like it might be rubbing on your shirt or something, but I'm not sure. I can't tell where it's coming from. But oh yeah,
I
I think
can
is that it? Yeah, that might be it.
can
Perfect.
hold it like this. Is that better? Can you hear that?
Yeah, that's better. But hopefully your arm doesn't get cramped during
No,
the
no.
meeting.
I'm actually at my hand lying, so it's
Okay,
okay.
yeah, I think it was rubbing on your sweater. Okay, all right,
Okay.
no problem. So you said that as you said, having that positive role model in your life during that time was really beneficial for you. How important do you feel that is just in general for athletes to have someone like that? And do you think there's enough of that in sports right now?
Yeah, like I mean, I love the quote, surround yourself with the people you want to become, and I think it's just, I can't stress how crucial enough it is to have a positive influence. And I was obviously in an individual sport as tennis, but it was really important that the group of players, my peers, everyone was pushing each other along. That there's that competitive piece within the group, and then also the coach. So important that the coach slash mentor, whoever, whatever you want to call them, is yeah, kind of gets you on that mindset of believing in yourself. I mean, if you, I mean, for example, I mean, not to give a stupid example, but like if you went to a coach every day and they were telling you how terrible you were and how,
Right.
like how, oh, you should, how is that going to help? I mean, so, um, yeah, I really believe in that. And I believe in that now, and in whatever you do, it doesn't matter if it's sport or anything, that it's really important to be around good people and people that encourage you and raise you up and not kind of knock you down.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because I know there's a lot of coaches who do actually coach from that perspective, like you said. Almost like they think that it's motivating to go from the negative side, like, oh, you can't do
Mm.
that, and they think that will push the athlete. But I don't think science actually backs that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't. I mean, I certainly wouldn't respond to that. Like I do, I take the point that people learn in different ways, or people are motivated maybe in different ways, but I don't buy the fact that I mean, I do think they would, like, when a coach comes in or something, they can be short-term success, but I don't think you can sustain that long-term, to be honest.
Right.
Um, my personal philosophy is like, I mean, why would you stay around a coach who would be like that? So, um, I think and I think that's changing. I think the old idea of a coach shouting at you and stuff, I think that's, thankfully that's not really around as much as it used to be.
Right. Right. Now, at 18, by the time you were 18, you had been number one in Ireland, and that kind
Mm,
of landed you a scholarship to the Louisiana State University. What was that like?
mm,
Because I know, man, going from London to Los Angeles, I was very naive. I thought, oh, everyone speaks English. It's a city.
yeah.
It's going to be great, and the cultural
Geez, you were going
differences.
to LA.
The
I
what
was going to
differences were.
Louisiana.
I know. Tell me about that whole transition. What was that like going from, living in Dublin all your life to Louisiana State? A lot of people don't
Yeah,
know what it's like there.
it was a little bit different. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I loved the environment. I loved again the coach. I mean, I was very lucky again. But I mean, if I could say one thing, it was probably the heat. I just, as an
Right.
Irish kid, going to Louisiana to the humidity in August. Phew, I don't miss that now, to be honest. That was very, very difficult. But it was really challenging. It was really tough. I mean, I'm sure you had that kind of transition to college where, you're doing weights at 5:30 in the morning and you're under, it's pressure and you're trying to balance all your academic stuff as well. So it definitely wasn't easy, but uh, I look back on it with fondness. Like I never like dreaded going back to college in the US or anything. I loved it, but it was definitely difficult. But and actually one of the most difficult parts was I went in 2005 in August 2005, a couple of weeks before Hurricane Katrina. So that was, I mean, to be there for obviously a huge hurricane which was hit New Orleans really badly, and that was very difficult. But my college experience, I mean, I would have had I had a great college experience.
Right. With the team camaraderie, is it? I know with USC where I went, it was. I mean, I had never seen anything like it, and I learned so many lessons that I don't think I would have learned at home at that time of my life,
Mm,
because the focus on sports is really intense in America.
mm.
Did you find the same at your university?
Yeah, like I think the team thing is great. I mean, one thing about tennis is it's such an international sport. So, I think one thing I've taken with me I guess, in life now is how lucky I am to have met so many people from so many different countries and nationalities and so on. So, you're on a team of maybe 12 to 14 players, and generally, I mean, probably 50% are from the US, and then the other 50 are probably from scattered from around the world. So we had a great team. We had a great I think there was a great culture of team and of people kind of pushing each other again. I think I think being in a good team is and having good personalities in that team is very very useful. And then I also I mean I love America because I love how passionate they are about sports and college sports, and how much respect they have for sports people and people that kind of dedicate their life to playing their sport and so on. I really love the American mindset around that.
Right. Now, at school, if I'm not mistaken, you did a degree in business and also
Mm,
sports psychology. Those are
mm.
really tough degrees. How, did you know what you wanted to do after college while you picked those, or did you feel like those were a safe bet? What were your plans for the future at that point?
Yeah, so business I did in college, but sports psychology I did a diploma when I
Okay.
finished playing, so that was a little bit later. But I suppose when I've always been kind of I think a bit of a dreamer, so I like kind of dreaming about things, I guess. So like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I've always been drawn to business and entrepreneurship, and I kind of like I guess I like the idea in sports of kind of climbing the mountain, and then I like the idea of it, in business and entrepreneurship, and again that's my coach before I went to college, like he had us reading entrepreneur books and stuff. So not just tennis, not just Andre Agassi's
Right.
autobiography, but actually other
Right.
sports books. So yeah, so I guess I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I was very tennis focused, and but I was always I think in terms of athletes and transition and those types of things, I think it's important for an athlete to have other interests and to kind of just be interested in things, and I definitely had interests outside of tennis. Like I like to read business books. I like to follow politics and all this sort of stuff, that I wasn't just solely tennis, but at the same time I didn't know what I wanted to do post tennis.
Right. Right. What? What do you think is the reason why it's important for athletes to have sort of a balanced life outside of sports, other interests? Why do you say that?
I think if you can balance the different areas of your life, I think you can be more successful on the in your sport. I mean, like, people would disagree with that. I don't deny that some people will say, no, you cannot, you have to have 100% focus solely on your sport. And look, I get that train of thought, but I think in terms of your life, I think it's really important that you have interest in other areas because, as a high performance athlete, maybe, you might retire at the age of 30. Hopefully, you're going to live until 90, 100, whatever. Like that's a lot more years of your life that
Right.
you maybe won't have your sport. So I think it's important that there's a focus there. I mean, I think too many times professional sport kind of almost sells you a dream a little bit and spits you out the other end. And I think it's important to protect against that. And plus, you need to make a living as well, right? So
Right.
not every like a very small percentage of athletes are obviously retiring from their earnings. So that's my personal philosophy. I think, and I think different sports are doing that quite well, and other sports are not. So
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you there because I think that's one of the things that the larger organizations don't necessarily impart on the athletes. Like, this isn't forever. In fact, in terms
mm,
of your entire life, this is such a small part of it. And the athletes that I see, like you, had more of a balance, actually coped with sports better. The ones that were
mm.
so focused on just sport, like if one thing didn't go right in the sport, that it just shattered them because that's all their life was about.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And I actually think there's I was having a conversation with someone about this a couple of weeks ago, a tennis person, and I was saying there's a big onus on the coaches because I think the coaches can be, we're all athletes can be selfish and coaches can be self, and I think coaches kind of they obviously want the player. So if you take tennis for example, they want them fully focused on their tennis. They might preach them to leave school. They might preach them to kind of give up everything basically for tennis. And then if it doesn't work out, then they kind of move on to the next player, and maybe that player is kind of left almost on the scrap heap.
right.
So now I know that's kind of generalizing, and maybe that's a bit unfair, but I think that there's an element of that's true. I just think it's important that players are keeping some form of, it doesn't have to be doing academics, but some kind of passions maybe outside their sport, that whether it's
Yeah.
photography or whatever, that they just can, that it just makes it an easier transition out of the sport.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. I want to ask you about the game itself because I know as a hurdler, I did both the 100 and the 400 hurdles. They're both hurdles, but they were completely different. What is it like, the difference
Mm.
between singles and doubles? What are the skills that you need to have as a doubles player versus a singles?
Yeah, that's a really good question actually. And like doubles is much more focused on the volleys. So your reflexes, it's more kind of, you play more an instinct in the point in doubles. So it's around your reflexes and certain areas of the game. So whereas singles is much more, what would be the word? Um, like if you look at some of the, like I wouldn't be an incredible athlete, I wouldn't say. Whereas if you look at a lot of the top singles players, they're just phenomenal athletes. Whereas doubles, it's much more on your, I suppose, on your teamwork, on your tactical. It's so there is differences there in it. But if you ask me, the biggest thing would probably be around in doubles, you tend to volley a lot more, whereas in singles you don't have to volley. So that's probably the biggest technical thing.
Right, right. Now, in terms of the game itself, your accolades, you're 5 years as a pro, you won 15 titles, you represented Ireland in the Davis Cup between 2016 2015. And there are millions of tennis players from all walks of life at all levels. What do you think made you so successful?
Oh, I mean, this question makes me cringe a little bit. You know, as I'm speaking to an
Cringe.
Olympic,
It's
well,
okay. Inquiring
I'm
minds
speaking
must
to
know.
an Olympic medalist. Like, come on, I'm like, geez, I
Well,
should
we
be
all
asking
come
you the
from
question.
different walks of life. No, I mean because you know people can relate to me for what I did, but your story is different from mine. And I think
Mm,
what it takes for because I walked in my shoes, what it takes for
mm,
me to get to the top is can be completely different from what it took for you because your background is totally different. So. I
mm.
genuinely, well, I want you to cringe, James. Cringe away, but
Yeah,
but tell me.
yeah. Well, now I know you went to USC, but I love watching kind of John Wooden stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I love his quote on success, and it's obviously, and I think about that a lot. Like you kind of asked, you said, well, what makes you successful? And I'm like, it's kind of our what's our definition of success? I always think success is something that's out. It's almost like it's out in front. It's like if I get promoted, I'll be successful, or if I get I don't know, if I buy a certain house or whatever. So I loved his quote on success, which is now I'm thinking off the top of my head, but it's success comes from peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction, of
Right.
knowing you did the best you're capable of becoming, or something like that. And for me in tennis, I mean, I loved the sport. I loved, I came from a non-tennis country. I'm not, I wasn't the best tennis player in the world by any stretch, but I felt like I did my absolute best. And my philosophy has always been, I always wanted to, again, kind of back to a previous point, I always wanted to get around good people. So I always wanted to learn from the best. And actually, I did a podcast about a year ago, and the guy, he owns a tennis academy in Spain, and he said to me, he said, I'd gone to that tennis academy for just a training week at one stage. And he said, the thing I remember about you is you asked so many questions. So I always ask questions of coaches. And so I always wonder, like, what are the
Right.
drills, or what are the tactics, and so on. So for me, I guess I was inquisitive about how I could, reach my potential in tennis. So I suppose that was, and then just, I think that resilience piece of just, fighting hard and creating that vision and trying to achieve goals, and so on. So maybe that's a bit of a waffly answer now, but that's what I
No,
got.
it's not a waffly answer. So speaking of the mind, because like you said, John Wooden is a great,
Mm,
coach who was coaching at UCLA for those who don't know, and he was extremely successful. And one of the things that he focused a lot on was getting into the athletes' minds. Did you have a mental preparation process, or did that just
mm.
sort of come naturally as you went throughout your career?
So before matches, you mean? Is that like how I
Yeah, like
mentally
to get
prepare?
ready for matches, especially ones, big matches and things like that.
Mm.
Did you have a particular way to prepare mentally, or were you
Yeah,
always working on that? Was that a daily thing?
yeah. Like I mean, I always, I suppose I had a kind of a set ritual of how I prepared on the day. If you're talking on the day of a match, I would be very focused, in terms of the warm up, and I know some people might listen to music, and some people, people have their different things. I was not. I wouldn't be superstitious. I know, like, a lot of athletes can be superstitious in terms of what song they listen to and so on. But I would definitely take time before a match on my own, and take some deep breaths, and make sure I always used to make sure I was walking on with a sweat, and kind of, I suppose, focused and ready to go. Um, the interesting thing about tennis, I find, is I might be playing third match on after 10 o'clock, for example, and the match before my match might go for three sets, and I might be on a little bit later than I thought. So it's a challenging sport in terms of, like, knowing when to eat, and it's not like
Right.
a football match where it's 3 o'clock and it starts at 3 o'clock. So that start time can change. So I think tennis is quite interesting in that. But I always had that kind of ritual of, I would always take time on my own before a match to mentally kind of get in the right frame of mind.
Right, right.
And
Uh, Go ahead. Sorry.
so I was going to say, and I would do that now, even, when I would, if I had a kind of an important business meeting or I was giving a talk or something or a presentation, I'd always try and take those moments before to try and mentally kind of get in that right frame of mind.
Right. Could you bring your camera just down a little bit? You're like a tiny head at the bottom. There you go. Perfect.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I have to
There
show
you
off
go.
my LSU
There you go.
logo. Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah, look, back down a bit, back so you're even with me. Sorry, the other way.
Oh,
Perfect. Oh, not too.
there.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. 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 All right. So when COVID happened, I read somewhere that you actually have a morning routine of going out and playing tennis. And
Mm.
COVID really interfered with that. And you said it was hard because of the mental aspect. What was that morning routine giving you for your, to get through your day?
Yeah, like I was saying that, for me, I would play tennis every morning at half six to half seven. No, I would play, sorry, that I'd play 4 days a week for sure. So, between Monday and Friday. And for me, it was as much around mental health. So I just liked kind of coming out in the morning, it woke me up and I would kind of think about what I'm doing for the day. And how I'm, oh, I need to send that email to this person, or I need, like, I'd kind of go into my world. Um, and I remember actually seeing an interview with a musician where they were asking about what it's like to play your old songs. And he said it's like, the guitarist said it's like putting on an old pair of shoes, it's like really comfortable, So I was saying with COVID, actually, I was like, it's telling, and currently we're in Ireland, we're in full lockdown. So there's no, all the tennis clubs and sports clubs and gyms and stuff are closed. So I was saying it's like saying to a runner, you can't go for a jog in the morning. Like
Right.
it was hard, like, and it still is hard. I mean, I'm not, so I'm doing a little bit of yoga. I'm trying to get into that and stuff. But I think one thing that what COVID has given us is just this appreciation for
Right.
activity, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think when we come out of this, I just think there's going to be an explosion of people just kind of looking for experiences, like, so I've gotten into kind of hiking now. I've enjoyed hiking and I'm kind of, I would have gone for walks and stuff, but I'm kind of new to this hiking buzz. And I think COVID has given, like, when we come out of this, I just think people will be even more obsessed with sports and travel and kind of craving experiences of doing things, because I think, especially in Europe and in Ireland, we've been, essentially locked in our, places. So it's been hard.
Right. Yeah. I think it's like the old saying, you never know what you've got till it's gone. And
I know.
so much is gone for us now. I think, like you said, people have a new appreciation for sports and being outdoors and just being able to walk out the house,
Mm.
at some
I
point.
know, I know, I know. Yeah, you can't go further than 5 kilometers from your house currently. So it's look, it's been really tough, but hopefully, obviously, there's you try and, I mean, as an athlete, right, you try and take positives, and hopefully there's hopefully there's some positives to take. And I think those are some positives. People kind of coming together, and people, what our prime minister said, like, we need to stay together to we need to stay apart to stay together, so something like
Right.
that, like, and I think it's really tough for people, it's and mental health and all those types of things. And I think hopefully with vaccines and so on, there's a little bit of light now, but um, hopefully in the next few months things will get even better.
Right. So, moving towards like the end of your career, you said something that I could really relate to, and that was that you felt burnt out. And when I looked back at my career, I wondered, could I have done anything that would have prevented me feeling burnt out? And I kind of
Mm.
thought about taking time off and things like that. For you, what would have prevented that? And is taking time off even realistic? Because there's this constant, like, you always have to be in the rankings. You always, in order to get the matches, in order to stay. on top of your
Mm.
game. Is there something that can prevent burnout? And do you think there's anything that you could have experienced in your career that would have allowed that professional experience to end without feeling that way?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like, and I think, I mean, I definitely think I should have taken more time off. I think, I don't know in terms of your sport, but like in tennis, like you just alluded to, I think I guess I was always chasing, right?
Yeah,
You're trying to chase your you're trying to chase the points to move up the rankings. And I think one of the things I reflect on now is that maybe I should have taken more time off and to recharge and be fresher and all those types of things. But you feel like you're kind of missing out if you don't compete, and you don't take those kind of training weeks to work on your game and so on. So I probably, in hindsight, I would take more time. And well, what else would I do differently, or in terms of burnout? I think those things. I think I would have take more time off. Um, is there anything else I would do? Not really. I don't have any kind of regrets. I mean, I read a book once, and the guy was talking about like I think the saying was like when you know, you know. And I think when came to the end of my career, I just knew it was time to. The other thing I think with athletes is we can become you almost become institutionalized by your sport a little bit, so
right.
you can kind of end up floating along and floating and not really enjoying it, and but you don't really know anything different. And I think it's you have to have that hard conversation with yourself, and when the time is right, to move on basically.
Yeah, yeah. Now, speaking of moving on, you did retire in 2015, but it was
Mm.
actually in 2018 that you said you found your calling. How did you get to that point where you're like, you know what? This is what I want to do. This is it.
Yeah, just by I suppose just by experience and throwing myself into again the people piece. I mean,
Yeah,
I think one of the things about athletes is networking and networks, and I think people have a respect for professional athletes or collegiate athletes, and I kind of leveraged my network in that successful people who were interested in tennis, I would play tennis with them and maybe ask them for advice on what I could do and learn from them and so on. So that's kind of through experience and through I went into companies. I did some work experience, and I did some work experience in LinkedIn in Dublin, their office. I threw myself into different things, and you just kind of find your way by trial and error, really, and you make mistakes along the way too.
right, right. Speaking of networking, you have
Mm.
networked with some very important people in the world. Sir Richard Branson being one of them. Tell us about that relationship. I'm sure you've been asked that a million times, but
Oh, that's okay.
we're curious to know and how the backing business uh, uh, worked for you
Mm.
in your favor. What was that all about? The Virgin Media's backing business and that
Mm.
relationship that you have with Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah, I was lucky in 2015. I played an ATP event, and I heard about this event called the Necker Cup, which is Sir Richard Branson's tennis event on his island. And he's a big fan of tennis, loves the sport. And essentially, it was business people, so founders of companies would come to this event along with, and do come to this event along with, Rafael Nadal and these types of tennis players. Now, so my highest ranking was 145, so I wasn't Rafael Nadal, but I kind of I called the guy who's the founder of the event, a guy Trevor, and just asked him, look, it was a little bit of a cold call, and I said, look, is there any way I can come and help out at this event? I'll stand on the court all day, and you'll never be short of players, so I'll play tennis with the business people and so on. And my thought process was, well, all he can do is just say no, So he came back to me and said yes, and so I went in 2015, and I met Richard there, and I met obviously the other guests on the island, and I was lucky enough to be invited back to coach him tennis. So
Wow.
been lucky enough to do that a good number of times, and I would go for usually go for a month, and and coach him tennis. And so I've been lucky to obviously meet the people that come through the island there, and also to spend a significant amount of time with him. And then in terms of the backing business piece, he had obviously introduced me a couple of years ago to Virgin Media, so I've kept in touch and would have a good relationship with them in Ireland. So when they were doing something for the TV, they asked me would I did I want to do a kind of a their backing business campaign. So that was that connection there. So again, like I would look at it and say, I think athletes need to they've played their or they've played their sport to an expert level, and they should try and leverage that
Right.
experience, and that can open a lot of doors that maybe you don't see at a younger age, but it definitely can, and it did for me.
Right. So while you were out there, what do you think the biggest thing you learned being around those all those business people? Was there any like number takeaway that you just thought, that was worth the trip?
Mm. Um, I asked one a tech entrepreneur about goal setting, and he said, "Look, what is the vision? So what? Excuse me, what is the vision? So what are you trying to achieve, and then work backwards from that." And that's kind of stayed with me because I think it's very similar to sport. So it kind of gave me that confidence that actually, the sports thing of goal setting is similar to the business thing. And then the second piece with Richard was the kind of things I pick up is his positivity. So he's always just incredibly positive, his zest for life, and um, the way he treats people. Um, if I'm trying to think of one kind of, I suppose the biggest thing for me was the people piece, and I think there's a lot of content on online about that, but like he's just an incredible business person, but person. And I remember at the start of COVID last year, I remember getting an email from him saying, look after yourself, make sure you're staying safe. He's just very, very conscious of people. So, very lucky to have spent a lot of time in his company.
Right, right. You talked about the similarities between business and sports being goal setting. What are there other similarities that you see between the game of tennis and the game you're in now, which is entrepreneurship?
Yeah, like I mean, I think a big thing is you can never get too high or too low. So for me in tennis, look, I would go to France one week and I lose in the first round, and then I'd go to Spain and I'd win the tournament. And it was always in tennis, it was always okay. Well, when you're losing first round, you're not obviously down in the dumps, and when you're winning, you're not. And if you try and keep your emotions in check, and I think that's the same in business. That like when things are going well, and you maybe have a significant deal or something happens that's great, that you're not like, I suppose, getting too high, and then if something falls through and something doesn't go right, which is going to happen obviously as well, is you're not getting too low. And then the other thing I think with tennis is, tennis is you have to have a short memory, right? So if you play a match and you lose a point, um, you obviously have the next point in 30 seconds, and I think that's the key in business, that short memory, that next phone call or that next conversation or whatever it is. And then the other thing is, I think, the tactical thing. So I think, if I'm playing a match and it's I'm losing in the first set or whatever it is, and sitting down on the changeover and saying, okay, we need to make that change, or I need to make that change, and making, I think, that strong, quick decision. I think sport, not just tennis, but I think sport teaches you that, and I think in when things aren't going well in business, or they are going well, but you see something coming down the line, then you can make that quick decision to change.
Right, right. Now, High Caliber Collective is your business. Tell us about that. Why did you start that business, and what does it do?
Yeah, so I started. I was always interested. I've kind of alluded to earlier in terms of in terms of my background, but I was always really interested in people. So I was always reading, performance books and entrepreneur books, and just really interested in people and learning from people and encouraging people and all those types of things. And that's kind of where the idea came from. And actually, the idea initially was when I was coaching Richard on Necker. Groups would come to the island to speak about, climate change or leadership. And so I came back to Ireland. I started hosting my own events with CEOs and bringing them together to discuss topics. And that's kind of, then they started bringing me there into their companies. And that's kind of how it, I suppose, grew. And now it's kind of morphed into, it's a learning platform, essentially for employees and companies to attend master classes and learn from great teachers and so on. So it's yeah, it's all around giving employees autonomy around their learning and development, and they can attend classes online. So and that's kind of a pivot that's come out of COVID, but it's going really well. And so I'm really excited about where it's headed.
Great, great. Now, speaking of books, because you've mentioned books quite a lot, I was watching an interview that you did, and you said that you would tell your younger self to read more books. What would be the books that you would have recommended to your younger self, or anyone at
Ooh.
any age?
Um, I love the book The Monk Who Sold Us Ferrari, Robin Sharma.
Oh,
I wish I read that when I was very young. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
I actually
Um,
haven't, and I'm a bookie, so I'm shocked.
yeah, that's a good book actually. And he's got there's a lot of content from him on YouTube as well. But what else? I wish I kind of like as I said, I love networking, but I never even knew what the word networking was until a couple of years ago. So there's a great book by actually a guy in LA, Keith Ferrazzi, Never Eat Alone, which I thought was
Right,
quite good. I really enjoyed that. And then sports books wise, I can't remember the name of it, but I love Steve Redgrave's book. And
right.
maybe your American viewers won't know who Steve Redgrave is. Did he win 5 Olympic golds or six? Was it five?
Gosh, I can't remember the count. It's a lot, though.
I think he won five over five
Yeah,
different Olympics, and
yeah, I think you're right.
I, and he's diabetic as well. And there's a documentary. It's on YouTube. I think it's called Gold Rush, and it's like he's just phenomenal athlete. So I'd recommend that as a kind of a sports book that maybe people haven't heard of.
Right.
So yeah, those couple of books.
Cool. Actually, you've given me some homework, so that's good. And actually, I've
But,
got another book on my list. You actually wrote a book called Advantage:
yeah,
Lessons from
yeah.
Sport and Business to Achieve Your Goals. What inspired you to write that, and what was your goal when you set off on that project?
Geez, I should have been plugging my own book. I'm
Don't
here,
worry, I did it for you.
yeah, I'm here plugging Steve Redgrave's book. Uh, but no, I always wanted to write a book, and I thought in terms of, it's not an autobiography. It's kind of, it's I've been so lucky again. The people that I've met along the way, the people I've met through tennis, and then obviously the connection to Richard and the business people that I've met through tennis. And it's kind of capturing those lessons and those stories. And I also thought, the further I move away from tennis, the more distant those memories become. So I wanted to capture them as well. So that
Right,
was part of the reason. And then I had I'd pretty much finished the book now, to be fair, but COVID kind of gave me the opportunity to really kind of finish it off as well. So it was something I always wanted to do. Now I don't know if I'll be doing another book, to be honest. I found it quite hard. So I don't
yeah,
know. Could be
it's
could be
easier
one
than
and
it looks,
done.
right?
Yeah, it's definitely easier than it looks. Yeah.
Right. So, what would you say is the most rewarding thing happening in your life right now?
Oh wow, that's a very good question. I'm really excited in terms of the business. Like, if I'm the way I've pivoted with the learning platform. I'm really excited about the companies I've brought onto it, and the sessions that are on there and so on, and where it's going. So that's probably the most exciting and rewarding thing at the moment. I mean, we're in full lockdown at the moment, so there's it's hard. Like, I mean, I went for a
Yeah.
walk yesterday, didn't do a huge amount today. Like, it's a challenging time, so I'm quite focused on the business at the moment. And yeah, so that's what's going well, I think.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to be letting you go soon, but I cannot let you go without asking you this. 60 hours of
Oh, yeah.
continuous doubles tennis. Are you a madman? Tell the viewers why you did 60 hours of non-stop doubles and what became of that.
Yeah, so yes, I am mad. Yeah, when I was playing professionally, a couple of guys and a couple of Irish people had attempted the record for the longest doubles match for charity. And the record was 57 hours, and they played for 33 hours. And one of the guys got cramp in their legs, and
Ah,
I just saw it and I thought, well, that's really interesting, it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then I finished playing, and I was doing different things, and I just had this idea. It was like, I'd love to train for something, basically. I'd love to
yeah.
be have something, an event out in the future, and something that's a bit kind of off the wall. And then that just came to my mind. And I asked a couple of guys if they wanted to do it. It just got legs, and we raised money for a great charity, and it was brilliant. And it's one of those things. It's great when you kind of think about something, and then it actually, it follows through, and we end up doing it. And it was yeah, it was very difficult, but very happy we did it. And there's a lot of lessons in it. I mean, I'd never run a marathon or anything before, but like, one of the things what someone said was like, the sun will come up on the Sunday morning. The sun will come up. It's just a
Right.
question of whether you guys will be standing there.
Right.
And again, going back to my hiking piece, that I'm not like this huge nature person. Historically I haven't been, but I'll never forget, like, when the sun came up, like through them, like the darkness was horrendous, and then when the sun came up, it was like, once we got through those couple of hours, um, we were kind of on the home straight. So yeah, it was great. Really, really, really enjoyed it. But again, I said I probably wouldn't write another book. I probably won't be doing that again either.
So now you're a certified Guinness World Book of Records holder. So, like you said, there's some things you do in life you're like, that was a one timer.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I
That's
do that again.
amazing. That's
Mm.
amazing. Like, I know LSU is such a big school for sports. So I'll be telling my son that I spoke to a tennis player from
Uh,
Louisiana State. It's one of the schools that he's interested in going to. So I
oh,
thank you so.
is he?
Oh yeah.
What sport is he?
He actually plays a bit of American football, but he's a trackie. He's built for
Okay.
track. Yeah, he's a great track
Would
athlete. But
he?
he's
Would
16, so he should be doing the hurdles. But he's like me, stubborn. My dad told me for years I should do the hurdles, and I was like, nah, nah, nah. But he's doing the 400
so,
flat.
so can I? Because LSU is obviously good in terms of track, and like really good in
Yeah,
terms of track and
huge.
field. And when I was there was Richard Thompson was there. I remember he won the silver behind
Yeah,
Bolt in
yeah.
Beijing. And I also remember, actually quite funny, was we used to run the track every now and again, and like I used to, when I was weak going over to the track because I used to dread it so much. And we used
Right.
to we we used to have to run 400s, and you know 200s and stuff. And I remember saying to the coach, like, going over, I was like, I cannot. How did I put it? I said, I'm so embarrassed at running on a track in front of these athletes, because they're just going to be laughing at me how slow I am running 400s and stuff. And he actually made the point. I remember him saying to me, he said, you don't, if someone plays on the tennis court beside you and they're swinging and missing the shots and they're not very good, you don't laugh at them. You just think, oh, they've never played tennis before. Like, you don't kind of think. And I think,
Exactly.
and I remember that actually, that stayed with me, like, that they actually, no one really cares, at the end of the
Right.
day. But I do remember, like, literally, it's like doing an exam and you haven't studied for it, when we went over to run 400s, because I was so weak
Right.
at the knees
Petrified.
that I was gonna
Yeah.
cramp up, like.
It's so funny you should say that because I coached at a high school, and it's the sport that everyone would sign up for because they thought, oh, this would be the easy one, and you can't cut anyone from the track team in high school,
Okay.
so the team would be massive, but then like 2 3 weeks in, it's like a handful of students left.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
dread it, like dread it. Just the
yeah.
hamstrings on those 400s. Oh my God.
Speaking of hamstrings, how was your body after those 60 hours on? I mean, did you need days, weeks, months to recover?
Yeah, one of the guys was quite sick actually. Now nothing serious, but he was quite sick. I was okay actually. The biggest thing, the worst thing for me was my feet. Like it was just because you're standing, obviously.
Yeah.
So that was the worst part for me, and yeah, I slept pretty well after it. Like,
I bet.
but I actually said to him, and I think you'll identify with this as a college athlete and professional athlete. Like, I was saying it was like I said to him actually during it. I said it's like when you're in college, and the coach is telling you, the fitness that you have to do and the practice, and you have to go home and study, and you have to do this, and you have exam the next day. It's like I think you have this ability just to kind of put the head down and just try and get through it, and just
Yeah.
kind of go moment to moment. And I actually think it reminded me of being in college in Louisiana, where you finish a hard practice in tennis, and then they say, okay, we're doing a 6 mile run or whatever, and it's 40 degrees heat, and you're thinking, there's no way I'm getting through this, but
Yeah.
somehow you just kind of put the head down and you keep going, like. So that's what it reminds me of.
Right. So I have I know you got to get back to business, so I'm just gonna
Okay, all right.
round up. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions just for the fun of it.
Okay.
You're gonna pick one or the other. So, Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Sportsman or businessman?
Businessman.
I think I know the answer to this one. Writing books or reading books?
Reading.
Yeah. Ireland or America?
Ireland.
Last question. What do you want the world to know?
What do I want the world to know? Uh, be good to each other.
Absolutely. And if people want to get hold of you, if they want to follow you, if they want to see what
Mm,
you're up to, if they want to find out more about your business and the learning platform, how can they reach
mm.
you?
Yeah, so thanks for that. So LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn, James Cluskey. I'm active on Instagram. I think j.cluskey is my username. And then my email is j.cluskey@hccollective.co. And the website is hccollective.co. So yeah, look, happy to help anyone, or if anyone wants to reach out, I'd be delighted to speak to them. So
Absolutely. Well, James, I really appreciate that you've come on today. You've taken time out of your busy schedule. I know we were like, oh, different time zones. Who's going to be
oh no,
awake
thanks,
the
thank
most
you.
when we get on? So I really appreciate you taking that time, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of you in the future. And good luck with everything in your business.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. And again, bronze medal. I'm in awe. So
Get out of it.
see, you're
Awesome. Well,
too modest. You're too modest.
I know I need to take a page out of your networking and leveraging my accolades book, but
Dude,
we'll
some people will be walking around with the medal around them, like.
I know mine's in a drawer somewhere, so I've got some work to do, but I'll probably be in touch with you to learn more about that.
Thank you, thanks a lot, and yeah, sure, we'll keep in touch.
All right, James, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Wow, isn't he amazing? He's so humble and just so inspirational. He's got so much knowledge, and I think it's because, like he said, he's curious. And I really enjoy talking to him and getting his insight, especially as it pertains to life after sports, because I think that's a huge missing piece for a lot of athletes is that we don't know or we don't plan for what we're going to do after sports. It's almost like we're so geared to believe that, okay, this sports thing is going to be amazing, and then I'm just going to live the rest of my life in a mansion eating grapes in a milk bath. But that's not the reality for most athletes. athletes. So, like he said, preparing, being well-rounded are great skills to acquire. And it was just a pleasure talking to him. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment on your most favorite moment in that interview. And we will connect with you. Like I tell you all the time, we like to connect with you. So make sure you go to the website as well, www.globalsportschannel.com, and see what we got. All right, there's so much more than this show, this sports personality spotlight, and you got to find out about it. Anyway, that's all from me, Tasha D. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate you, and see you next time.